Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to our video, and today we're going to be doing a quick overview and assembly of a freestyle frame from SpeedyBee, the FS225. So let's just get right into it. Comes in this nice little box here. And it was packaged a lot more neatly when I originally got it. I have taken this out, but all these pieces were in between their own pieces of foam. Here are camera plates, all of our screws, a couple standoffs. We have the battery pad and wow, this is actually a pretty nice battery strap. Pretty sure this is actually sort of like a leather, and then we have a metal D-ring up top. And then we have another little battery strap with the same type of leather for the HD camera for the Session or the RunCam 5. That's actually really nice. And then in here, individually packed, we have our forearms, and these guys are 5mm. You can see they have a very heavy chamfer on them, almost like a 3mm chamfer. You can see very, very round, extremely smooth in my hand. It looks like they've actually been gloss dipped afterwards, which makes sense. This is a little bit more of a premium frame, coming in at $70. So one thing to note actually as I'm getting ready to put this together is that they do use press nuts in the design. However, they don't come pre-installed, which is quite interesting. I don't know why, considering it's a $70 frame, but you should be able to just push it in there, and then once you tighten the screw, it should help set it. But realistically, these should be set with a press tool to get the right amount of force and insertion there, so I'm not quite sure why they aren't pre-installed. Okay, so just getting this guy set up, we're going to take the 10mm screw, which is the second shortest one they provide. They provide a bunch of 6mm for the top plate. That screw goes in this outside hole of the plate here, and then we have our arm. It goes like this right here, and keep in mind this is a true X frame, so there's only one way to assemble this. Keep in mind that this bottom plate here, where the camera goes up front, sort of starts in the middle and goes forward underneath, and then this mid plate starts in the middle and goes towards the back. So they don't both cover the same level, which is kind of clever. It saves a little bit of weight. You don't need that extra plate on both sides, but it does keep all the strength in the center. Just holding this together and slotting in that press nut. Just going to torque this down as much as I can just to try and set the nut, and then I'm going to back it off a little bit and hopefully it'll stay down. Yep, so that's seated in there just fine, which is pretty nice. It definitely helps that they have these screws, these holes countersunk here. It lets the nut set down in there, so it's not really going to be a problem. I'm going to take our 30mm screw, which is the longest one, and that's going to come up through this hole here, and it's supposed to slot on the arms. You can see it's not fully, that's so you can take it apart without having to take your stack off, but it's a pretty tight fit, so I'm going to have to screw this all the way in. So this is going to take me a little while. Okay, those two are in, and then lastly we have the 14mm screw, which is going to go up in this last hole for the standoff. It's going to slot right onto there. Tighten that down, and there is the first arm, and it is extremely solid with the 3-screw mounting right here, as well as the very tight tolerances, so that is sweet. So that is definitely good. So let me go ahead and get the other 3 arms on. Right, so all the arms are installed. You can get an idea of what that looks like, and it leaves a nice slot in the bottom plate if you want to run bottom mounted battery. I'm going to be running top mount, so that doesn't really matter. Keep in note that the M2 screws for 20x20 options here don't have a cutout in the bottom plate, so if you are running M2, you need to make sure that you screw on your stack before you assemble the frame. If you're using the standard 30x30, you can see this screws here. You're going to be able to just slide stuff over if you have dummy soft mounts. Or if you need to, you can use shorter screws and then use any other type of mounting hardware that you want. For example, they do include a couple of little nylon standoffs here. So for these parts here, they actually go in at an offset. So they need to start on the bottom and go backwards a little bit, so you can see hopefully it goes that way, and you want the SpeedyBee writing to be on the outside, otherwise the camera screw will not fit. And it's interesting how these mount. They actually have these little squares here that go in there, which they actually are quite loose, and I was a little worried about that at first because normally these type of designs just press in, but it does have a screw. You just use one of these 6mm screws and you put that up into here, which is going to tighten that down very nicely. And screwing metal into metal, you probably want to add some Loctite, but I'm feeling pretty lazy right now, so I'm just going to go ahead and do that. And there is that piece. And then there is the other one, and keep in mind this is 19mm spacing for micro cameras only, so you can see, put this micro guy in there and it fits perfectly. Very, very nice fit. Tiny little bit of pressure on it, so keep in mind full size and a mini will not work. You can use a nano with an adapter. Then lastly, we should just be putting on the top plate and screwing it in here. And there we go. That is the frame fully completed. And I just gotta say, this thing feels like an absolute tank with these 5mm arms and the way that these base plates sandwich. Like, if I try to bend this thing here, like, I'm giving it full force and I'm getting like 2mm of deflection across the 200mm. Like this thing is probably the stiffest and most durable feeling frame that I have ever held, and so I think this should hold up really, really well for freestyle. I just put the little micro camera back in for right now just to check the camera protection at about a 40-degree up tilt. You can see it is pretty decent camera protection, not the greatest, but it's going to be perfectly fine for most people. So now that we have it built, let's go ahead and weigh this guy. And I have not put the battery pad on just because I want to see what it weighs without it. So it weighs 110 grams without the battery pad, and then adding the battery pad is 115 grams. So it's definitely not the lightest frame. If I were considering for a light freestyle build, I'd probably be looking at around a 90-gram frame. So this is 25 grams heavier. However, there are definitely some other frames out there that are 130, 140, 150 grams. And at that point, I feel like you're just losing durability because of that extra weight that you're carrying into crashes. So obviously, the frame is meant to carry an HD camera, and they have this 3D printed TPU GoPro session mount here, or RunCam 5 mount. They will both fit in this. This is just going to screw on up front, and I am a huge fan of when the mount uses 4 screws, just uses the front screws. It's really secure, and it's really simple and clean. I hate using zip ties or just putting something on there. So I think this is a 30-degree mount there, which is pretty typical for freestyle. It's what I run. And it is nice that the mount comes with its own extra longer screws, because the included 6mm will not be long enough. They'll strip out the standoffs. Keep in mind this does cost extra though. It is not included with the frame. And they also have this little VTX mount here where you can directly screw in a TBS or a little UFL Axis style antenna. Here is something that's a little interesting. It's little 3D printed motor skid guards here. So they actually go underneath the arm, and you can see they protect the bearing hole so that no extra dirt can get in there, as well as they protect the end of the arm here and give it a little shock absorption, as well as they act as a skid plate for the bottom if you're landing. You could probably skid on these. I know some people make these out of metal, but 3D printing at a TPU, this should last a really long time. And they also do sell a couple little extra antenna tubes. Since the frame is $70, which in my opinion is a little bit on the higher end of freestyle frames, I know some frames like the Johnny frame, Mini Quad Club, whatever, they're over $100. I just think that's absolutely ridiculous to pay that much for a frame. So $70 for the type of quality you get here with all of the chamfering and CNC aluminum parts, I think is a pretty nice, is a pretty fair price point. I just wish they included the GoPro mount standard, because pretty much everyone wants that and is going to need that. But that is a separate item to purchase. So that was a quick look at the frame. SpeedyBee also did send me this little new antenna that they have come out with. You can see they made a customized RCAddict version, which is pretty cool. Pretty much standard looking little antenna. It's definitely the first one of this shape I've seen. If I had to guess, I'd say it's kind of like an Axie, but a shorter version. And the outside is a flexible PCB that'll turn the signal. That's just my guess. I only have one of these, so I'm not going to cut it open. But it is a nice little antenna. Pretty cheap. I think it's like $7 or $8 because it's $15 for 2. And it should work very well on a freestyle frame where you put it back here to get it up out of signal. Hopefully I'll be building this guy up soon if I have some parts laying around. After feeling it in my hand, it is definitely very, very nice quality. And I wasn't originally going to build it since it is a little heavier than I wanted. But it is a really nice frame. And I think it would make a really durable freestyle machine. So that's going to do it for the video. There will be a link for the antenna as well as the frame in the description below. Hopefully this video was helpful on the quick assembly. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.